to our TradeDB application, I'm going to add a couple of classes here. So first one is going to be a program class to actually run this code. So I'll be running the generation here. That'll put down some generated code in this module. And then this module, I'll reference it in this application here to be able to get to those things. So I've done this a couple of times. Writing out this code is a fun exercise for me. So we'll have a generation tool at the end of all of this. So it's easiest to build it up from the bottom. And then this generation tool will tell it to generate something. So we can give it some config eventually. Now this configuration, what is that? Let's see here. I'll have a variable, I'll call it config, and then I'll initialize this to a new configuration. And then with these objects, there's a bunch of methods on there, sort of like builder methods. And we see here that there's a few things that we can put on there. The two most important ones is going to be this generator and this JDBC. So you can see these are two different categories of things. The generator tells this config where to put our generated code. The JDBC one tells this generator where to find the database. So we can have a JDBC here. And then with generator, I'll just call it generator. And then again, we'll have var JDBC. It's going to be a new JDBC. And this is also one of these JOOQ objects. You'll notice this package up here. So let's take a look at some of these factory methods on here. I see here there's one with driver. There should be a URL in here and a username. So these are the most important ones. Let's start with driver. We're using the Postgres driver. One thing to keep in mind while you're working with this is that this thing has no idea what we're talking about. We need to specify everything. Which driver you're using, what database variant you're using, all of this stuff. Now the driver is pretty easy to find. It takes in a string name, but we can, instead of putting in some string literal for the driver name, we can say org.postgresql.driver, and then we can say class get name. That's going to give us that driver name, and we don't need to worry about string literals. Then with username, get that one out of the way. It's easy. It's Postgres or local dev user or whatever. With password, we had this one for our Docker environment. Then with Docker, we've mapped those ports. So we can do with URL. It can be as if it's running on the local machine. So we start out with JDBC, then PostgreSQL, localhost. That's the default port 5432. Then we also need to specify the database name. Now this here, that should be enough information for this one. Let's see here. We also had this generator. So generator, I'll make this a new generator. And then what do we have here? We have a database and with generate. These are the most important ones. We'll take a look at this strategy thing as well in a minute. But let's see here. This one takes in some database. Okay. Then we have with just generate. So we'll just pass in something that I'll call generate. So let's start with the database. Var database new database. And I believe this one is also kind of easy. So let me just see here. What's the most important ones? With input schema. We'll call this input schema public with includes. So within that schema, I'd like to include everything. Then we also have this with name. Now this is again to specify what kind of database we're using. And we can track this down if we go to Postgres database inside of this JOOQ meta package. And then I'll just say class get name. So that's going to tell this thing that I'm working with a Postgres database. Now we have that one. Next thing to do is to take care of this generate value. So new generate. Yeah, that one. We can pretty much leave this one as default for now, but I'd like to take a look at these two values specifically. So with POJOs, let's put that one to true. And then with data access objects, we can also put that one to true. I just remembered that I also need somewhere to tell it where to put this stuff. So that's going to be with this target. So the target tells it which directory to put the files in. So let's see here, new target, and then with directory and package name. These are the most important ones. And we can put in our package name here. And in my case, I called it trade DB. I should actually move this program class, because if I run it as it is right now, this program class will be removed from here because this code generator will clean out the directory. Then up next is going to be with directory. So I'd like to put it inside here, but then this package name already it makes directory. So each one of these parts is its own directory. So that means I can already have this as my directory, but let's see here. I'll have a directory variable here. Now I'd like to do this dynamically based on where this project is. So we can do string.format. The first one is going to be the current directory, and then I'll dig down into that. So the current directory is going to be where the parent project is. So this JOOQ directory. That means I can go further into TradeDB. That's a directory here. Then source main Java, and then this comes from my package. Now to get the current directory, we just say system.get property, and it's going to be user.dir. That gives you the current directory where whatever is running is. So I'll take that one and then put that in there. Now this target will go in here, and that should do it. Let's see. This one is telling me that it can throw some exception, which is okay, I guess. If it breaks, then I just want to know about it while I'm busy with it. Okay, let's run this. I'll add a config, and I'll call this my trade DB configuration. Java 25, the module is going to be DB main, and then the main class is going to be program. So apply and okay. Oh no! See now, I made the tragic mistake of not moving my program class. Now it's gone. I lost that. But I was lightning fast with my reflexes and I copied the code. So I'm going to move this thing over to just the top level one there and then paste this in there so I have it back. Okay. Now we can run it again and see that it's not going to delete any of my files, but here we go. All of that stuff's been created. Now if we go to this DB package, we have this tables. So all of this stuff is related to tables. There is one thing that's not working so well for me at this point. See here, this thing is called account. Now this is a table implementation. Same thing with this trade. Eventually I'm going to have, see here it's already an issue. Pojos in this case is also called trade. So that means while I'm working with it, we can just quickly test it here. I'll have a trade table. Let's see here. I'll just call it trade. And then I'll have a trade Pojo. New trade. I want that one, but see, now it's giving me this long name here. That's fine. The code will work, but I don't like that. It's not nice to look at while I'm dealing with this code. So to fix that, we can go to, I believe it's this generator. So we do with strategy. And this takes in some strategy value. So the strategy, we can do var strategy. And this one is going to be a custom class. In order for us to customize the names of these generated objects, we create a new class. So it has to be a public class, public static class. So static because I'm inside of this program already. And then we call this our naming strategy. And it extends the default, let's see here, default generator strategy. Then there's one method in here that I need to override, and it's going to be get Java class name. That one. We get two arguments, the definition and the mode, and we'll use those in here. So there should be a table definition, a routine definition, and I think that's it. That's all I care about at this point. So if the definition is an instance of table definition. Then I want to do some stuff. Then we can do switch on the mode. So case DAO. Then I'll return. I'm going to use this value, but I'll return as string. It's going to be DAO, and then that value there. Case Ojo is simply going to be the value there. And then the default, that's going to be the table. So we can do string.format, TBL, and then there we go. Oh yeah, I forgot my return statement up here. If we have a table definition here, and we check what's the mode. I think this mode is an enum, and there's a couple of values in here. So the default, I guess that's like a table, but we'll find out in a minute, right? Okay, let's set up this strategy. It's also one of these objects. And then we say with name, it's going to be our program class.naming strategy class.getName. And there we go. We can put this strategy in here. And now if I run it, let's see here. So this I kind of messed this one up. So we don't need this record thing in here. I can, as a matter of fact, just return that value. And then it's also going to tell me I can merge it with Pojo, which is fine. Let's run it again. See, table record already has that postfix there. Tables now has a nice name, so I know it's a table account. And then DAOs also has a nice name, so I know it's a DAO, data access object for account. DAO already in here. That's interesting. So that means I could even do something like this. Not sure where that came from, but there we go. This was the only thing that I was interested in. Later on, we'll take a look at definitions, instance of routine type, routine definition. Then we'd also like to do something here. But for now, there we go. We have our tables generated, so we can start using them. And I'll use them in this project, this module here. I'll get rid of all of this stuff, pretty much everything, because it gets the important dependencies from the top layer. And the only one I need in here is going to be an implementation on a module that's part of this project. We can specify the path here, and there's no sort of group ID required in this case. All I need is the module name, like that. If I refresh this, see here, I'll make a main method. Now I should be able to get to this TBL account and all this stuff that was generated. So I can, so that means that my code generator works, my module is set up, and I'm ready to start working with these things and my database, which is going to be for the next one. So this one was quite long, might be a bit boring, but this code right here is now ready to generate these values for pretty much any database if it's Postgres. If it's some other database, then you might just get away with changing this connection URL, but then that's it. So let's get started with some SQL statements, but JOOQ.